What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Garrett and I've been doing an overland build series of my 4th gen Toyota 4Runner. And guys, I finally got the lift kit and wheels installed and this thing looks sick. Come check it out. All right, so as you guys saw, this thing looks a whole lot different now. I finally got the 295s installed on here. It's been lifted, I'd say about a good 6 inches between the lift kit and the tires. So let's get into exactly what I've done to this truck so far. All right, so let's talk suspension. So for suspension, I went with the Bilstein 6112s on the front and 5160s on the rear. I went back and forth for so long trying to decide what suspension I wanted to go with. I was looking at stuff like Rough Country, I was looking at stuff like Old Man Emu, Fox, and towards the end it really came down between either Fox suspension or Bilstein suspension. A lot of people were saying that the Old Man Emu suspension is pretty stiff, so I didn't want anything that was super stiff. So what I went ahead and went with was the Bilsteins. So the research that I've done, the Bilstein 6112s and 5160s are one of the best suspension kits you can get in the price range before you really start opening up your wallet. If you go anything above those, you're going to be paying a whole lot of money, which is what I didn't want to do, but also I didn't want to buy anything cheap. So I'm kind of a buy once, cry once kind of guy. So I went ahead and purchased the Bilstein set. So when I purchased it, the people from Shock Surplus told me was to get ones that was built for an FJ Cruiser, a 2007 FJ Cruiser, and the ones for the FJ Cruiser will fit on the 4Runner. So the reason is because the circle clip settings are different. On the driver's side, the circle clip setting is going to be a little bit higher, and on the passenger side, it's going to be a little bit lower, just because the way that the 4Runners are built is there's the driver and the gas tank all on the same side, so it'll kind of sag a little bit. So that's why the circle clip settings are going to be different on each side. The ride height that I had them set it at was to a circle clip setting 6 and 8. And what that did is it raised it up about 3.5 inches in the front. The 6112s have a 2.5 inch shock body, which massively improves road comfort and off-road capability. But aside from that, I have zero complaints about them. They've worked perfectly. They're so comfortable. They're way more comfortable than stock. When you go over bumps, especially on like gravel roads or like potholes or anything, like it flies over them. You literally can't even feel them. So I have zero regrets on the Bilstein suspension. So next, let's talk upper control arms. With upper control arms, I went with the SPC upper control arms. I debated quite a bit on which ones to go with, but at the end of the day, SPC upper control arms is probably one of the most adjustable upper control arms that you can get. Now, when you're building out your 4Runner, you want to get aftermarket upper control arms if you're raising your truck over about 2 to 2.5 inches. Reason being is because if you raise your truck up 3.5 inches and then you leave your stock upper control arms on there, they're not big enough at all, and they'll wind up hitting your actual shock body and damaging that. So if you raise your truck up, you will have to go with an aftermarket upper control arm. Another thing with these SPC upper control arms is they did actually allow me to push my front tires forward more, which does help out when you're fitting bigger tires. You can push them forward away from your actual body mount and fender. The SPCs, they're not cheap. There are way more expensive upper control arms out there. These I think ran me around 7 something, but these upper control arms have been great. I've had no issues with them, so I would definitely recommend those. So that's what I went with on the front. Next, let's talk about the rear. All right, so for the rear suspension, what I went with was the Bilstein 5160s. The reason why I went with those is because they have a reservoir on them, and reservoirs actually will help out with overheating if you're doing a lot of strenuous stuff with your suspension, and also it'll help out with travel to give you a little bit more travel as well. So that's what I went with on the rear. These things have been absolutely great. Like I said, I have no complaints about these. And then for the rear springs, what I went with was the Icon 3-inch rear springs. The one thing I will say is if you're going to be running this setup, the 3-inch rear spring is going to be a little bit high. As you can see, the rear of the truck sits up just a little bit higher than the front, so it's not very level. Now, I did do that on purpose because I plan on running a rear bumper with a tire carrier and jerry can holders on the back. So, you know, I tried to future-proof a little bit to level that out. But if you decide to go with, you know, the 3-inch rear spring, the Icon 3-inch rear spring on there, and then, you know, it just keep in mind it's going to raise the back up quite a bit, and you're going to be able to tell if you don't have any weight on the front. However, once you put that weight on the back, it'll definitely smooth out the back. The rear, I can tell, is a little bit stiffer than the front is, but once I put these bumpers on, it'll definitely smooth out quite a bit. But overall, it is very comfortable, and I have no complaints about the rear. But right now, the rear does sit a little high, so keep that in mind. If you go with the 3-inch rear spring, your truck is going to sit higher in the back. So next is going to be spacers. So with this truck, I got the perfect stance that I was looking for. So I have a 1.25-inch wheel spacer on right now. So the 1.25-inch Spidertrax spacer equals out to about a -32. I was going to go with negative offset wheels. However, I couldn't find any that were the kinds that I wanted. These wheels that I have right now are 0 offset. If I could have avoided a spacer, I would have, but Spidertrax has really, really good reviews, so I would definitely recommend those whenever you're looking for spacers. Now, the reason I went with spacers also, aside from just, you know, aesthetics and stuff like that, is because when you run up to a bigger size tire, you're gonna have to run a spacer because your tire will end up rubbing on your upper control arm and a bunch more stuff in there, so you're gonna have to use a spacer to push it out. Now, with that being said, the bigger the spacer, the more you're gonna rub. And the reason for that is because it's going to push your leading corner of your tire more out, and that's going to hit more on your, you know, your fender and your body mount instead of back in that little pocket where it's supposed to be. So, you know, when you run bigger spacers, you know, keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, if you're running a big tire, you're going to pretty much have to run spacers or negative offset of some sort. So that's why I went with the Spidertrax spacers. All right, so next, let's talk about the meats. So these are a 295/70 R17 tire. So I absolutely could not decide when it came to tire size what tire to go to. I debated between a 285 and a 295. With some pictures, the 285 looked medium enough. Some pictures, the 285s looked like stock. I just could not make up my mind. I hardly saw very many photos of people running 295s. Couldn't hardly find any information about them. So I was like, you know, I was getting ready to buy tires. It was time for me to buy tires. And I literally decided probably like 5 minutes before I bought them. You know, I was like, all right, whatever, I'm just gonna go to 295s because I would rather buy a bigger tire size and then have to go down rather than buy a tire size that I didn't like and it just wasn't big enough and have to move up. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna go with the 295s. So long story short, I got 295s. And I do not regret this decision at all. You know, I was trying to figure out before I bought them, you know, do you have to re-gear with 295s? Do you have to do this? You know, like what comes with buying a 295 tire? And I couldn't find any information anywhere. And so do you have to re-gear with 295s? Long story short, no. Not right now anyway. I haven't added on the armor in the front, armor in the back, but the armor in the front is going to weigh about 150 pounds and the armor in the rear should weigh like maybe 180 plus a tire. So I mean, it's like having 2 or 3 passengers in your car. So if you can drive with 2 or 3 passengers in your car and not have to re-gear, then you should be fine. So long story short, as of now, I do not have to re-gear. I'm not gonna get too deep into it because I'm gonna save it for another video, but if 295s scare you, don't let them. Now, with that being said, 295s do take some work. Not a whole lot, but they do take some. So what I had to do was I had to cut the front of my bumper to make it fit. And also I had to cut the rear and hammer the pinch welds. Now, hammering pinch welds is not, it's probably the easiest thing I've done to this truck to date. It's not hard at all. So, you know, if that stuff makes you nervous or if, you know, doing your body mount shop, which you will have to do running 295s, if that stuff makes you nervous, don't let it because it's not that bad. And honestly, at the end of the day, this is 100% worth it. It drinks a little bit more gas. I get about, I'd say 5 hours of highway driving. It's about 350 miles per tank. So, I mean, I can drive 5 hours on the highway and be fine. As far as highway driving, Doing 70, it's fine. Like you can, it doesn't, there's not really any difference. When you start getting up to about 75 to 77, it will start gear hunting just a little bit. But I'll get more into that stuff, you know, and what comes with 295s at a later date. As far as the wheels, I went with the Icon Rebound Pros. These are a 0mm offset. These things have been great. They're bead locks, so you know you can air down and everything like that with them and be fine. Tires, as far as tires, I'm running a Yokahama Geolandar MT. So these tires, I probably are the best tires I've ever owned. You know, I didn't want a really loud tire. I've had loud vehicles in the past. I didn't want that. You know, I thought maybe it would be like when you're driving down the road and you hear somebody's tires going down on a jacked up truck, it would be like that. These tires are super, super quiet. So if a mud terrain tire, you know, if noise and stuff like that is what worries you, do not let it, because these tires are extremely, extremely quiet. So this is the decisions I made as far as the wheels and tire setup. Everything worked perfectly. I have no regrets about any of these things that I did. All right, let's talk about the rear of the truck, what I've done to it. As you can see, taillights are a little bit different. These taillights I went with are the TEQ Customs taillights. By far, in my opinion, the best taillights for a 4th gen 4Runner that you can own. They're sequential. The light pattern on them is super cool. So yeah, these taillights, I would definitely recommend them. I'll go more into depth on those in another video. But these things totally change the look of the truck. They make it look a lot more, I'd say, like aggressive from the rear. And also, I really love sequential lights on vehicles. And I wanted a tail light that was sequential. So these tail lights, super awesome tail lights. I have zero regrets about them whatsoever. All right, guys, so that sums up the 4Runner build as of now. I appreciate you guys watching to this point. I'm definitely gonna be doing a whole lot more to it. I may or may not have a front bumper coming in the mail, but I'm definitely gonna be working on, you know, a lot more stuff for you guys. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comment section. I want to be able to help you guys out as much as possible, because when I was building this thing out, you know, I had a ton of questions when it came to suspension, when it came to wheels and tires, you know, the amount of stuff that would go into it. So I want to be able to help you guys out as much as possible, and, you know, kind of give you guys some direction as far as 4th gens go in the 4th gen community, because there's not a ton. So if you guys are looking forward to more of this content, definitely like and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys checking out the videos and watching thus far. If you guys got any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. And I appreciate you guys checking out the video. Take care.